¿Es este el albergue?
Sí.
¿Tiene camas libres?
¿Tenías reserva?
No, no tengo.
Bueno, ¿es una persona?
Sí.
Vale. Tengo plazas. Necesitaré pasaporte y credencial. 2 minutos.
Eso es muy bien. Ah, good news. Checking in to an albergue. So you arrive at an albergue, and if you haven't got a reservation, the first thing you might want to know is, have they got any spare beds? Have they got any room? So when you arrive, you can say, tiene camas, which is beds, libres. Don't forget, pronounce all the letters and roll the R's. Or if you're feeling a bit rich, you might check into a room, or want to check into a room, and then you can say, tiene habitaciones libres, for rooms. So do you have free beds or rooms? And then quite often they say to you, have you got a reservation? Tienes una reserva. Do you have a reservation? And then you can say sí or no. Or if you do have a reservation, you wouldn't want to ask, have you got any free rooms or beds? You might go up to them and say, tengo una reserva. I have a reservation. And all these tiene, tienes, tengo, they're all the Spanish verb to have, tener. So I have tengo, you have tienes, you have, or he, she has, which is the polite way to speak to an individual person, or about a he or she, is tiene. So if you say tiene camas libres, that means you're being polite, and also it's not too personal. For example, if you said tienes camas libres, I think that might be a bit like saying, can I come home with you tonight and sleep in your spare room if you've got a spare bed? Whereas if you say tiene, that's a bit more like, does the albergue have spare beds? So there you are. So you arrive and you say, tiene camas libres. And it's quite possible the first time you try this, it will be a complete disaster. But it's also equally likely when you come to day 33, you will be an expert and you have learned something, and it will be part of your adventure. So also, quite a few albergues, especially in the more remote areas, do an evening meal, a communal meal. And it's not like a restaurant. They all do a communal meal at a certain time, normally 7 o'clock in the evening, or when with 7:30, something like that. And they only cook enough meals for the people that they know want the evening meal. And so you have to tell them when you arrive, or certainly before a certain time, that you want the meal, and they don't always remind you. So what you can say is, I cena, do you do dinner? I cena, and it's spelled hey, but it's pronounced how English people say the word I, your I. So you say, I cena, and I'll say sí, and then you say, me gustaría cena, I would like dinner. Or you might say, I menú del peregrino, is there a pilgrim's menu? And they'll say yes or no. They don't always have an evening meal, but if you ask that question, I cena, and that C sound again, th. Once they know you want an evening meal or asking about it, they might say, no, pero hay un restaurante, and they'll give you directions to the restaurant in Spanish, but there might be a pointing, and at least there is a restaurant nearby and you can head off in that rough direction. So, I cena, me gustaría cena, and I'll put here again that cuánto es, because that's something you want to know, isn't it? When you go to the albergue, you might, before you decide to stay, you can ask them how much it is, and because they're so cheap, you only need to know really the first 10 Spanish numbers to be able to understand the answer. So, checking in at an albergue, using the Spanish word tener. ¿Es este el albergue?
Sí.
¿Tiene camas libres?
¿Tenías reserva?
No, no tengo.
Bueno, ¿es una persona?
Sí.
Vale. Tengo plazas. Necesitaré pasaporte y credencial. 2 minutos.
Muy bien. Ah, good news.